The briefing room was suffocating with its air of routine arrogance. Officers shuffled papers, pilots exchanged knowing smirks, and the scent of burnt coffee clung to the walls. At the center of the long oak table, the squadron commander barked orders about the upcoming mission. It was meant to be a meeting of warriors, yet to one pair of eyes, all focus narrowed not on strategy, but on a young woman slipping quietly between the rows with a tray of steaming cups. "Make sure that's 2 sugars," one officer sneered without looking up. His dismissive tone carried the sharp edge of habit, the kind reserved for someone seen as beneath notice. The tray trembled slightly in her hands, not from weakness, but from the weight of silence pressing down upon her. She moved with careful precision, each step rehearsed in a world where her presence was tolerated only as background. And then, it happened. A captain near the head of the table glanced up, almost by accident. His eyes landed not on her face, nor the coffee she carried, but on the sleeve of her faded jacket. A patch, frayed at the edges, stitched with the emblem of a unit long whispered about in reverence. A patch no civilian would ever wear, and no pretender could fake. His breath caught. His chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood unbidden. The room froze. Every eye turned, first to him, then to her, and finally to the piece of cloth that changed everything. The patch told the story before she ever opened her mouth. But she did not speak. She never needed to. She was not just someone fetching coffee. She had worn that patch in deserts where the air itself cut into lungs, where night was broken by tracer fire, and comrades' voices silenced before dawn. She had stitched it back onto her uniform after it tore in a blast that sent her tumbling across dirt and stone, clutching her side as red blossomed beneath her fingertips. That small square of fabric was not a symbol. It was a scar, a memorial, and a reminder of everything she had endured when no one else had expected her to survive. And yet here, in this room, she was invisible. She remembered the sand, the roar of engines, the acrid bite of smoke. She remembered the way her best friend's laugh cut through the chaos like sunlight, and how that same laugh was silenced by shrapnel no medic could mend. She remembered carrying him, her arms screaming under his weight, refusing to leave him behind even when every step brought her closer to death. Her unit had called her iron-willed, but here she was just the woman with the tray. She placed the final cup on the table and turned to leave, her silence a shield stronger than steel. But the captain's voice cut through the stale air. Not loud, not commanding, simply certain. "That patch," he said. His words like stones dropped into a still pond, rippling outward until the whole room fell into uneasy quiet. "Where did you earn it?" The officers shifted uncomfortably. Some snickered under their breath, assuming he was mocking her. But others, those who knew, those who recognized the emblem's gravity, felt the chill spread down their spines. They stared at her sleeve as if seeing her for the first time. Her eyes met his, calm, unwavering, yet carrying storms beneath their still surface. She did not answer. She didn't need to. So, silence was her testimony. The tension grew, thick and unrelenting. The commander cleared his throat, irritated. "Captain, let's stay on topic. She's here to serve coffee, not what?" The captain interrupted, his voice sharp now. He pointed to the patch. "Not to be acknowledged for carrying the same emblem some of you claim to honor. Not to be recognized for surviving what most of us never could." No one moved. The silence was suffocating, yet electric. The woman stood in the center, still holding the empty tray, her presence suddenly heavier than the authority seated around the table. The mocking officer from earlier shifted uneasily in his chair. His smirk had vanished, replaced with the creeping realization that the one he had ordered around like a servant might have bled in battles he had only read about. His eyes darted to the commander, seeking guidance, but found only discomfort mirrored back. Still, she said nothing. Her silence was louder than every insult ever hurled her way. It was the silence of someone who had walked through fire and refused to scream. The silence of someone who carried names etched into her soul, each one a comrade who never returned home. It was the silence of dignity, unshakable and unbreakable. The captain took a slow step forward, his gaze never leaving hers. "Heroes don't always sit at this table," he said quietly. The words carrying weight far beyond their volume. Sometimes they're the ones we fail to see. The room shifted. Chairs creaked as men who had moments ago dismissed her now avoided her eyes. A current of shame swept through the air, thick and undeniable. The mocking officer opened his mouth to protest, but no words came. There was nothing he could say that wouldn't sound small against the magnitude of what hung unspoken in the room. And then, the unexpected happened. One by one, the pilots stood. Not in noisy gestures, not in forced theatrics, but in silence. A ripple of respect moved through the room until every man and woman was on their feet. The commander, reluctant yet bound by the unspoken code of honor, rose last. She stood motionless, her face calm, though her hands trembled slightly against the tray. Not from fear, not from weakness, but from the overwhelming force of recognition pressing against the walls of her solitude. She had not asked for this. She had never needed their applause, nor their validation. But in that moment, her silence had moved mountains. The captain spoke again, his words etching themselves into the memory of every soul present. Respect isn't given by rank, it's earned by sacrifice. And no one in this room has the right to overlook that. The woman turned, finally setting the tray down on the table. Her voice, when it came, was soft yet unshakable. "I'm not here for recognition," she said, the words carrying the weight of deserts, battlefields, and ghosts. "I'm here because others couldn't be." And just like that, she reclaimed the silence. The room stayed standing even after she walked out. No one dared to sit until she had gone. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, painting the base in gold. She walked steadily, her jacket sleeve brushing against her side where the patch remained, weathered but defiant. It was not just fabric, it was a promise, a memory, a vow never to forget. In the weeks that followed, the story spread quietly among the pilots, whispered in mess halls and over late-night shifts. Not about the coffee she carried, but about the weight of the patch she wore. Some stories are spoken loudly, but the ones that last are carried in silence, etched deep where words cannot reach. For her, silence had always been enough. And yet, in that room, surrounded by those who had once looked past her, silence had become something greater. It had become a force, undeniable and unshakable, the kind that bends arrogance into humility and forces the blind to see. Because sometimes the greatest victories are not won in battle, but in the quiet moments where truth can no longer be ignored. And so she walked on, unseen by most, yet carrying within her the weight of countless unseen battles. Her story was not one of recognition, but of resilience, of dignity unbroken, of sacrifice remembered. And somewhere, in the silence she left behind, a new respect grew, one not commanded by rank, but earned by the quiet power of a sleeve patch and the woman who wore it. If this story reached you, take a moment to honor the silent heroes whose sacrifices often go unseen. Share where you're watching from, leave your reflections below, and subscribe for more stories that give voice to those who have carried the weight of battles in silence. Because respect is not a gift, it is a debt we owe to the ones who never asked for it, but earned it all the same.